Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to do part 5 of the crazy story titled, 3 Husbands Join Forces to Divorce Wives Who Have Been Cheating on Them for 4 Years on Girls' Nights. And guys, for those of you who have been watching this series, you all know darn well how nuts this is, and not to mention entertaining. Now ordinarily I would do a recap, but since this juncture you guys all know what's going on, I'm not going to do that. And if you are new to this, like you just clicked on this channel, go watch parts 1 through 4, you'll get the point. So I'm just going to jump back into this story, and you're going to see where things are going because it's quite a doozy. It says here, hello SSM. This is another update about Steve, James, and me. I am Brad. We're still divorcing our wives, Jesse, Liv, and my wife, Fran. Well, I certainly hope so, man. There have been no backsliding from any of us at all. Steve, James, and I want to thank you for your support and the insight and support of your community in the comments. The community has really helped us get through this. Knowing that there are people cheering us on immensely is encouraging. Thanks from all 3 husbands. Of course, we got your back. You need us. You need us. Y'all need support. The police detective that was interested in Jesse pops up again in this update, but this is mostly about our wives. Oh, I can't wait to hear what shenanigans the wives are getting into now and what stories are popping up. Part of this includes what Fran told me about where she is and what is she doing. I know you will be shocked by this, but everything Fran told me was a lie. Okay, can't wait to hear this. Part of it includes what Liv told James about where she is and what she is doing. I know you won't believe this either, but everything Liv told James was a lie. Well, that's what they all do. You can't believe anything these wonderful ladies have to say. What Jesse tells Steve about Fran and Liv is probably as close to the truth as anything we'll ever get. And much of this update is based on what Jesse told Steve. But who knows what Jesse's holding back. While Jesse may be really throwing the other 2 under the bus, I guarantee you're not getting the full story. There is no way you're getting the full story. This update will be in 3 parts. Number 1, what we thought our wives were doing, what they told us around the time of the last update, and 2, what they really were doing, and 3, where we are now in the middle of December. The last update was slightly less than 2 weeks ago. We left off with James and me living in our homes with our kids. Steve moved back to his house when Jessie left to stay with her mom. Fran and Liv told us that they were living with their parents. Nope. No. Okay. First, about the cop. After Steve was forced to defend himself against Mr. BJ's unprovoked attack on him, Steve's wife Jessie left to go live with her parents. Steve's back living in his house. Remember, guys, Steve is the big jack dude who had that altercation with that guy, and that guy attacked him and he beat the hell out of him. The fight was on a Monday morning. The following Wednesday, Steve came home from work to find his neighbor Hector waiting on his porch. Hector's the old guy next door who they all really like. Hector told Steve that the detective had come by Steve's house that afternoon. Of course he did. He knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, looked in the windows, and left after a few minutes. Hector asked if they were still investigating Steve about his fight with Mr. BJ. Steve said he heard nothing more about the fight. The detective was probably looking for Jesse. Remember, the detective was definitely noticing her looks and was hitting on her in a way. Alarmed, Hector asked why the detective was looking for Jesse. What did Jesse do? Steve said the detective was interested in dating Jesse and explained to Hector about the detective hitting on her in front of Steve. Hector said that a-hole. If he comes back, Hector said he'll teach a cop about respect. I wouldn't go there, Hector, unless you want to be behind bars in your final years on this planet. Steve told Hector that Jesse and Steve are divorcing. Who Jesse sees is not his problem. Hector should stay out of it. Hector grumbled something. Hector was coming over for dinner, and Steve said give him an hour. Steak's okay, and Hector said he'll bring beer. They were finishing their steaks when there was a knock at the door. It was the detective. This is ridiculous. He said he has some questions. Can he come in? No. Steve said no. Hector followed Steve to the front door. Hector told the detective if he's here looking for Jesse, he should leave right now. Trying to flirt with a man's wife is the lowest of the low. The detective should be ashamed of himself. The detective ignored Hector and repeated that he needed to talk to Steve. You're not getting in my place unless you got a fucking warrant, asshole. The detective said it would only take a minute, and Steve asked what he wanted. The detective asked if he could come in so they could talk in private. No. Steve said if he wants to talk, talk. Hector doesn't mind listening. He's interrupting their dinner. Get to the point. The detective asked if Jesse was there. Hector started yelling at the cop about leaving Jesse alone. Steve and Jesse were married. You don't break up marriages. Only scumbags do that. Steve told Hector to stop. He told the detective that Jesse didn't seem too interested in him. She's evidently not banging scumbags this month. The detective should maybe try again next month. Hector warned Steve not to talk about Jesse like that. He told the cop that Jesse's not here. So you see Hector kind of standing up for Jesse a little bit here. And you're going to see that Hector, obviously, because he's lived next to them, and he's an older guy, I believe in his 70s or something like that. He looks at her kind of like a granddaughter or something like that. The cop says he needs to talk to Jesse. Where is she? Steve said she's at her mother's. The cop said he has Jesse's cell from the police report. He's been trying to call Jesse, but she doesn't pick up or return his calls. The cop said he's not after Jesse. Jesse just has information that he needs. Sure, pal. The cop said he's not after... I wrote that part. He saw Jesse in a hotel bar over a year ago. She was with a woman, Fran. The cop and Jesse's friend really hit it off. The cop bought her drinks. They got a motel room. And things were going really well, but the woman just ran out of the room. Uh-huh. Steve asked the cop if the woman got him to take off his clothes and took his picture. He shouldn't have volunteered that information. The cop stared at Steve for a moment and asked Steve how he knew that. Steve asked if that is what he wants to find this woman because of the picture. The cop said yes. He's pissed about the picture, but he really is interested in the woman too. He knows the woman's first name, but not her last name. Jesse knows who she is. This woman and the cop started out the evening in a booth together, and Jesse and some guy. It was obvious that Jesse and this woman were friends. After Steve's fight with Mr. BJ, when Steve was on Hector's porch, the detective tried to ask Jesse about the woman. Jesse told the cop that she didn't know what he was talking about. She told the cop to leave her alone, and the other cops were still around, so he couldn't press it. Uh-huh. I'm sure you guys can pick up the sarcasm in my uh-huh. The cop's been thinking about and looking for this woman since she left him in the hotel room. Did that to a cop, huh? But then if the cop was with a married woman, what does that say? But he has her first name. Steve asked what he wanted with the woman. The cop said he wants his picture back. The cop smiled. This friend of Jesse is really hot. Besides the picture, the cop wants to continue where they left off in the hotel room. She owes him that. Get the fuck out of here. Now, there are elements to stories in this one here that I have my suspicions about. And this part here seems very... Yeah, I know cops can do things they shouldn't, but still. But okay, I'll keep reading. Steve asked for the woman's name. The cop said all he knew was Fran. Aha, Fran. Steve asked the cop to describe Fran. Steve said he described my wife exactly. Does Steve know who she is? Yes. Can the detective get her full name and where to find her? No. Why not? This is police business. Steve says, no, it's not. Yeah, it's not police business. It's not official business. The detective is not going to arrest a woman who got him to pay for a hotel room, had him stripped, took his picture when he was going off, and then run out of the room. He'd never live it down. The detective said, look, he really liked Fran. He's pissed about the picture, but he really wants to reconnect with Fran. Get the fuck out of here. Steve told him Fran is married, but her husband is divorcing her. He'll talk to the husband to see what he wants to do. He told the detective to give him his card. Hector and Steve went back to dinner. Hector warned Steve about how he talks about Jesse. Excuse me, sir. You have no idea what's going on here. Steve said he'll watch what he says. Hector left about 8:30. Steve called me. I'd say, Hector, we've been neighbors for a while. We're friends. I like you, but you have no idea what's going on here. Steve told me about what the detective said about Fran. Steve said it sounded like the romance of the century. Fran taking his picture and running out of the room when the cop popped his cork. We can't keep these two lovers apart. A love story for the ages. Steve asked what I wanted to do. The cop is a sleazeball. Steve's advice is not do anything. F the cop. I said Fran denied everything except her affair with Bob's big boy. Big surprise, Fran was lying to me. Of course she's lying to you. They're all compulsive liars. But I didn't know what I wanted to do about the cop. I asked Steve for the cop's name and contact information. Steve gave me his description in case he showed up at my house looking for Fran. I thank Steve for letting me know. I got a call from Fran after I talked to her father. Unfortunately, I have to talk to this woman. I don't want her telling a judge she couldn't see her kids because I wouldn't speak to her. So Fran called me about what I told her father. She was livid. When her father called me, he really pissed me off. What did I do to push Fran into infidelity? Yeah, remember in the first story, or part 2, when her father was giving him a hard time, like, you should take her back. And, of course, he found out that she lied to her teeth to her dad, and he hung up on him. He's an a-hole. I gave him a short but colorful summary about Fran's multiple affairs and the girls' night's exploits. Fran is not happy with me. Her father spent almost an hour yelling at her and calling her names. Well, good, she deserved it. How could she be mad at you for you reporting back what she was doing? And she lied to her dad, making you look out to be the bad guy. You know, again, the gal's in accountability. What did I tell her father all those lies about? If I told her father anything untrue, Fran should talk to Liv. Everything I told her father came from her. Fran says she talked to Liv, thought Fran was the one who told me about the 3 wives girls' nights exploits. It wasn't Fran, it was Jessie. But because Liv thought it was Fran, she was furious at Fran, so she made up a bunch of lies. I'd be like, I don't believe anything you motherfuckers say, except the fact that the only thing I can believe is you're all full of crap, you're deceitful liars, manipulators, game players, cheaters, and that's really all that matters. And we're done. Kiss my ass. Merry Christmas. None of what I told her father is true except her meaningless fling with Bob's big boy. Sure, honey. If I call Liv now, Liv will confirm that she just made up everything and told me about Fran. Yeah, because Liv is such an honest gal. I can only believe what she has to say. Looks like the wives are closing ranks. Fran went on to say that her father is enraged with her. He knows Fran lied to him about how long she's been seeing Bob's big boy and thinks that she's lying about everything. Well, he keeps yelling at her. Fran's mother is trying to be invisible, but Fran's father yells at Fran's mother too. Years ago, Fran's father found out that the mother cheated on him. Of course, she's a chip off the old block. They separated, but he ended up taking her back. Well, smack to her dumbass dad. Finding out about Fran's infidelity reopened all these old wounds about her father's suspicions regarding Fran's mother. Fran's mother is frantic. Fran is in a constant reminder of her father's mother's her mother's infidelity. Who wants to bet that Fran is not his real daughter? That'll be a twist. I was thinking about calling Fran's dad and asking him what he did to drive his wife into adultery. See how he likes that question. But he took his wife back. She probably convinced him it was his fault. Probably. Anyway, Fran's mother wants Fran to leave so her father will calm down. Fran says she's going crazy living with her parents. Can she come back home? She misses me and the kids. No, the only place you can go is a cardboard box down the street. That's where you're going to go. I say absolutely not. Fran said I made it impossible to live with her parents. It's my fault telling her father all that stuff. What did I expect her to do? I told Fran I expect her to be a faithful wife and mother. My expectations were way too high. She should not expect anything from me. I told her to get a lawyer, we're divorcing, we got off. She didn't ask about the kids or when she could see them, because she doesn't care about the kids. All she cares about is herself and taking care of her. Fran called me again the day after Steve told me about the cop. Fran was still complaining about her parents and pressing hard to let her come home. Well, I still have to wonder about in regards to, I'm assuming her name is on the deed and the mortgage and all that, so I have to wonder if she has some rights to come back in the house, even though she shouldn't be there. That's another question I have. She said she only made one mistake. Bob's big boy. She lied to me about how long she was seeing him. One mistake? That's not one mistake. That's years of mistakes, you lying piece of crap. That it was wrong. She should not have lied. But she never did any of the other stuff Liv told me about. Random hookups, running out on naked men in hotel rooms, multiple guys in one night. Ridiculous. All that made up nonsense. She wants to come home so we can begin the healing process. She loves me and only me, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it is all blah, blah, blah. I told Fran a cop is looking for her. Alarmed, she asked why a cop is looking for her. I told her she ran out of his hotel room about a year ago and he wants his picture back. Fran went silent, but finally she said it wasn't her. Then why'd she go silent? Compulsive liars, all of them. She never did that sort of stuff. I told her that he had her name and described her perfectly. Was it somebody disguised as Fran and using her name? Maybe a twin that I didn't know about. I love the sarcasm here. Fran asked what I told the cop. I said I didn't talk to him. He asked Steve about Fran and when the cop recognized Jessie. He wants to know where to find Fran. He wasn't satisfied with a BJ and a goodbye. He wants to take advantage of the wider services that you now provide. Fran asked, how serious was this? Did the cop want to arrest her? I would have fun with her and say, yes, he does. I told her the cop wants to F her and his picture back. Did I have the cop's name and phone number? I don't care what she does, so I gave her the cop's info. We got off the phone, and Fran never asked about the kids or when she could see them again. Of course, because she doesn't care. Jesse calls Steve. Steve talks to her when he's not busy. He's not going to take Jesse back, but Steve's picture is in the dictionary. The dictionary? You mean something else. Next to the Steve's picture is in the dictionary next to the definition of good guy. We'll tell him to ignore Jesse. Let his lawyer do the talking. They don't have kids, so there's nothing for Steve and Jesse to talk about. Steve says Jesse can't hurt him now. Steve thinks what doesn't kill him makes him stronger. Jesse's infidelity didn't kill him. Talking to Jesse doesn't kill him. So, Steve answers the phone and listens to Jesse. Jesse had a visit from Liv on Sunday after Steve moved out. The day after James, Steve and I confronted her about girls' night. Jesse told the husbands about our wives' girls' nights and their infidelity. So Liv came to see Jesse. Liv knocked on Jesse's door, and when Jesse opened it, Liv punched her in the face, knocking Fran down. She jumped on Jesse and kept hitting and slapping her. That's assault. And not that she didn't deserve it, but still. Hector, who also told Steve about Liv's visit, was on his porch when Jesse opened the door for Liv. Hector saw the first punch. Nobody hits his Jesse. He hurried over and found them both sitting on the floor. Jesse was crying, but keeping an eye on Liv. Jesse's shirt was torn, and she was bleeding from her nose and lip. Cat fight. It's like Hector's probably like, what is with this neighborhood? Liv was breathing heavily, out of breath from pounding on Jesse and shaking her hand to try to lessen the pain. Hector looked back and forth, not knowing what to do. Liv finally caught her breath, got up and yelled that Jesse had ruined all their lives. Stupid B. You don't tell husbands anything. Why couldn't she just keep her mouth shut? Well, none of these gals have been able to keep their mouths shut, and if you know what I mean about that, for the last 4 years. Jesse said that Liv told James and me way more than Jesse did. Liv said she had no choice. James and I seemed to know everything. She said it was better to come clean, at least to some extent. But all that was because Jesse opened her big mouth. Well, you all are opening your big mouths. You all know what I mean. Jesse should have denied everything. She just looked like she was just going to hit Jesse again. So Hector got between them. Liv stormed out. But the wives have since made up. According to Jesse, Fran, and Liv, they decided that the husbands played the wives off each other. They need to stick together or the husbands will keep playing them. They agreed to never talk to the husbands again about their past. Do not answer any questions about the girls' nights, etc. Deny everything. Say what Jesse and Liv told the husbands were all lies. The wives were mad at each other, so they made a bunch of stuff with each other. None of that is true. Sure. Liv said that none of the three husbands really want to believe their wives are cheaters. Despite what they've seen on their phones or what they've heard from their wives, the husbands don't want to think their wives could betray them like that. Well, no husband wants to think that, but they obviously have plenty of proof. Come on here. But once again, this is proving, guys, real quick intermission here. They all think, all these gals, that with enough crying and tears and I'm sorry's and deny, eventually the guys will take them back, because in their view, these guys they perceive them as weak, as nice guys, as white knights, all those things that you can think of. And then they wear them down enough, they'll take them back. That's the perception they have of these guys. And that's why I say, when a woman has a perception of you, whether that really is accurate or not, good luck trying to shake that off, even after 50 fucking years. They tell themselves maybe it was just a one-time mistake. The wives are remorseful. They won't do it again. Or it wasn't their wife who did this stuff. It was the other two wives. Eventually the husbands will want them back in their loving marriage that they miss. Just give the husbands a chance to persuade themselves to take their wives back. See? That's the mentality. That each of the wives should figure out what they want. If they want to stay married, don't talk about the past and refuse to engage in any discussions about divorce. It doesn't matter. You have lawyers, you have them served, end of fucking story. Only talk to their husbands about their future together, and if they don't want to stay married, then get on with it. Hire a shark lawyer and stick it to their husband. Jesse told Steve that Fran and Liv believed that Jesse with them on sticking together. But Jesse knows that doing what Liv and Fran want, denying everything, uniting with the other wives, will only push Steve further away. The only thing Jesse wants is Steve. Jesse doesn't owe Fran and Liv anything. Jesse believes that if she tattles on Fran and Liv, she will integrate herself with Steve. She'll throw her friends under the bus to show Steve how much she loves him. A step towards reconciliation. Steve listens. It's always good to know what the wives are up to, and Jesse tells him. Hey, use Jesse as much as you can. James has not heard from Liv since she left the house to live with her parents. Nearly 3 weeks at this point. James thinks that's great. When we get together at the gym, he announced he still hasn't heard from Liv, and we high-five each other. We finally heard from Jesse about Liv. Jesse called Steve when he was on his way out from the Thursday workout with news about Liv. She and her out-of-town lover, the businessman who she met for overnight when he traveled here, have decided to try living together. Oh, that's going to work out real well. The guy's a wife and kids. Of course he does. He's a scumbag. Jesse thinks the wife found out he was cheating on her and threw him out. Whatever, the guy's been living on his own. He's about 700 miles west of where we live. When Liv was telling James about me and girls' nights, she texted this guy breaking off the affair. But Liv called him right after she left James's house. She told the guy the text about breaking up was just something James forced her to do. Liv told him she left James for good, so they were both single now. Liv and the guy decided to try to be together and see what happens. Yeah, this is going to work out real well. Liv moved in with him and had been together for weeks. That's why James hasn't heard from her. She's living with her lover 700 miles away. Hey, and she can stay there, just as long as she gives me the divorce. James said he cut off her credit cards and access to his money. I asked him where he got the money to fly out to the Midwest to be with this guy. Or where did she get the money? He shrugged. Either the guy paid or Liv's parents. Liv's parents probably gave her the money to get rid of her. James could not have been happier that she's living with this guy. She abandoned her kids to be with her lover. He'll call the attorney, and we're using all that to sue her for custody right now. He wants it to be official that he gets the kids. We were all in a great mood. You're darn right he should have the kids. Look at her actions. She doesn't give a shit, neither does Fran. James has really moved on from Liv. If we have a competition about who among 3 husbands has the worst wife, it would be close, but James would win. Yeah, I agree. He despises Liv. James talked to the lawyer, and the next morning with the news about Liv leaving with her lover. The lawyer said James getting custody of the kids was in process. Can James get her lover's address so he can serve her? I am not so lucky with Fran. She's continued to call me, but still hasn't asked to see the kids. The kids miss her, but I'm not going to chase after Fran to get her to see the kids. No, don't. I was hoping she'll decide to live with a lover like Liv did, but that's what Fran did. But unlike Liv, who basically disappeared from James' life, Fran still calls me. We have kids. I have to talk to her. Jesse told Steve that Fran is living with Bob's big boy. Fran couldn't deal with her parents, and Bob was pressuring her to move in with him. Hey, he can have her and take her to McDonald's. Bob was some kind of big shot in city government and was well off. Jesse said he's an older man, a lifelong bachelor, boring as hell, but according to Fran and Liv told Jesse, one big asset. Fran told Jesse that one asset more than compensated for his other failings. Both Fran and Liv told their husbands they were living with their parents, hoping for reconciliation. Nope, they were living with their lovers, hoping for good sex. Oh, for goodness sake. Can't say I'm surprised. According to Jesse, the last couple of times Fran called me, she was already living with Bob. She just forgot to mention that to me. She didn't ask to see the kids because Bob doesn't want her kids anywhere near him, and Bob doesn't want her seeing the other men. That includes me. The idiot doesn't realize I'm the least of her worries. After I told Fran the detective was looking for her, she called Jesse to ask about him. Jesse described the detective to Fran, but Fran didn't remember him. Well, of course not, because there's been so many dudes, but she said it was only one guy, and it was a mistake. Jesse said the detective was good-looking, and Fran was curious. He's the guy who Jesse said was good-looking and who's been thinking about her, trying to find Fran for over a year. Big ego boost for Fran. She looked through a photo of guys from hotel rooms, but couldn't figure out which one he was. So this is obviously all the information that Jesse's given to them, trying to get Steve back in her good graces. A lot of the pictures didn't have faces. Fran couldn't resist. She had to meet the detective. Of course, attention and validation. They're all narcissists. And she's probably thinking if I befriend this cop, and give him a whole sob story. I can use him to get even with my husband or something. So Fran called him. They hooked up, and Fran continues to see him during the day when Bob is at work. Too dicey for Fran to see her children because Bob might find out she's seeing the cop was worth the risk. Obviously, again, they're getting all this information from their friend Jesse, short for Jessica. I like with James, this could not be better news for me and my kids. Fran's lover won't let her see the kids. So James' wife Liv and my wife Fran were already seeing another guy. Or two. What about Jessie, Steve's wife? She's been living with her mother and working full-time at the travel agency when she was a part-timer. She tells Steve that she's not seeing other men and won't, except Hector, Steve's neighbor. Uh-huh. Jessie checks on Hector a couple times a week. She's doing Hector. Sometimes she stays and cooks Hector dinner. Steve comes home from work and sees her car there. Hector adores Jessie. The feeling is mutual. Hector considers Jessie a daughter. Jessie's father ran off when she was a toddler. Hector is the father she never had. I would love for that to be that's all that it is, and she's just bullshitting him, but I can't help but think something else. I mean, the world's fucked up, you know. After Jessie left to live with her mom, Hector approached Steve about taking Jessie back a number of times. Smack to Hector. Hector, would you like to see the picture of my wife in the bathroom with a giant Oscar Mayer wiener in her mouth? Maybe that might make you change your mind. She is pulling off the sweet little girl thing to Hector. In Hector's eyes, Jessie can do no wrong, or nothing too wrong. Hector knows Jessie was unfaithful, but none of the details. All Hector knows is that Jessie says she loves Steve, and since Hector thinks it's impossible for anyone not to love Jessie, Steve and Jessie should settle the differences and get back together. I say to Hector, Hector, we've been neighbors for a while. I really like you. You're a good man, but stay the fuck out of my business. End of story. We're going to have a problem. That friendship will be over. I told Steve he should tell Hector the details about Jessie's behavior, starting with the pictures of her in the men's room. But he says it will break Hector's heart. Not your fucking problem. He's a big boy. Or Hector just won't believe it. He'll say the pictures are fake. Steve tried to ignore Hector's attempts to talk to him and about Jessie, but he finally got fed up. He told Hector that he was divorcing Jessie, he will never take her back, and if Hector doesn't stop asking about taking Jessie back, Steve and Hector can no longer be friends. Hector said okay, they stopped talking about Jessie. After leaving Steve's, Jessie went to live with her single mother. Jessie's mother has an active social life, and Jessie was getting in her way of her mother's love life. Shocker. Hard for the mother to bring her dates home with Jessie in the living room in sweats, eating popcorn and watching television. Also, when the mother's boyfriend saw Jessie, they forgot about her mother. Things weren't working out so well for the mom. She started hinting to Jessie that make other living arrangements. So her lover she's bringing home, they look at the daughter, and they're like, oh, and they start talking to her. Mom doesn't like that. Jessie asked Steve if she could move back in, just as roommates for now, if that's all that Steve wanted. Steve told her there's no chance in hell that he and Jessie would ever live together again. Well, she's going to want to live with Hector. Hector invited Jessie to stay in his house. Oh, for God's sakes, that sucker. Laughing, Jessie told Steve that Hector sternly explained to Jessie, waving his finger at her, that she will have to do some cooking. But only if she wants to. She can take one of the spare rooms, or he can move to one of the spare rooms, and Jessie can take his room. Jessie moved into the spare room of Hector's. Smack to Hector. She's a grown-ass woman. She can get her own fucking apartment. Hector explained to Steve that Jessie had nowhere to go. He was taking someone in who he considers a daughter. Steve should not worry that Hector will try to make a move on Jessie. He'll never pursue a married woman. Well, what if they weren't married? Is he not going to pursue her? Please. I'm not buying this bullshit. Mr. Captain Save you-know-what, Hector. Steve told him that he could do what he wants, but Steve doesn't want to hear anything about Jessie and from Hector. Naturally, Steve's relationship with Hector has been strained. Steve sees Jessie sometimes in the morning when they are both leaving for work. Jessie smiles and waves. Steve just looks at her and shakes his head. Oh, for goodness sake. So, guys, this is going to wrap up part 5 because part 6 is long and I need a break. But I will continue on part 6 in a couple hours as I usually do. So don't yell and scream any more than you have to, guys. But you know I will stick to my word and have the second part of this update in a few hours, so you guys can go off and go to the bathroom or make some food or do what you gotta do or do some work if you're listening to this during the workday. And I'll see you in a couple hours.